All right, so are you ready to dive deep? Today we are going to be tackling carbon trading.
Okay.
But not the usual like rah-rah stuff, you know. You sent in some sources that really question if it's actually as effective as we're all told.
Indeed, these sources, I think, they provide a pretty critical lens on the current system.
Yeah.
And they raise some really intriguing alternative solutions.
Yeah, we're looking at the Guardian's investigation into forest-based carbon offsets. Remember that?
Yes.
Those were pretty damning.
Yeah.
And plus we have the Australian Institute's critique of their own carbon credit unit, and then an article that examines both the good and bad of global carbon trading as a whole.
It's a good mix.
Yeah.
I think this will help us build a really comprehensive understanding of how carbon trading is intended to work, where it falls short, how it might be improved.
Yeah. Before we get into like all the nitty-gritty details, though, I think a quick recap on just the basics of carbon trading is in order just to make sure we're all on the same page, you know.
Yeah, the core idea behind carbon trading is to address what economists call a negative externality.
Okay.
Essentially, companies pollute, right?
Yeah.
But society as a whole bears the costs of those emissions.
Yeah.
Things like climate change impacts, health problems from air pollution, you name it.
Right, yeah.
So carbon trading, what it aims to do is to internalize those costs by putting a price tag on emissions.
So instead of companies like getting a free pass to pollute,
Exactly.
they have to pay for their impact on the environment.
Precisely. And that price mechanism incentivizes companies to reduce emissions directly.
Yeah.
If it's cheaper than buying carbon credits to offset those emissions.
Right.
And perhaps even more importantly, a robust carbon price makes investing in low carbon technologies a much more appealing prospect.
So it's not just like a quick fix, but it's a way to push like the whole system toward a greener future.
Right.
I like it in theory, but these sources make me wonder if the reality matches up.
Yeah, and that's where the concept of market boundaries becomes crucial.
Okay.
And where some of the problems begin to emerge.
Okay.
In a global carbon market, companies naturally gravitate towards the cheapest credits.
Right.
Often originating from projects in developing countries.
Yeah, I can see how that would be like tempting for businesses.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sound quite right. Yeah. Is there a downside to that?
Yeah, while chasing the lowest price may seem like savvy business, it can actually undermine the entire goal of carbon trading.
Okay.
If a company can buy dirt cheap credits from a project halfway across the world, there's less pressure on them to actually make tangible changes to their own operations.
Right.
They're essentially getting a green stamp of approval without truly decreasing their emissions.
So buying cheap credits from afar could be a way to look good without doing much good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's worse, those rock bottom prices, they don't incentivize companies in high emitting countries to actually invest in cleaner technologies or make their operations more sustainable.
Right.
It becomes an out of sight, out of mind kind of situation.
Yeah, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg, you know? You're not really addressing the root problem.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why local carbon markets, where companies can only trade carbon credits within their own region or country, are gaining traction as a possible solution.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued by this local approach. But before we jump into that, let's unpack some of those real-world examples you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The Guardian's investigation in particular was pretty shocking.
It was indeed. Yeah. They found that a staggering number of forest-based carbon offsets, specifically those certified by Verra, a leading carbon credit certifier, were likely worthless.
Okay.
Projects were claiming credits for protecting forests that were never actually at risk of being cut down in the first place.
So they were getting credit for doing absolutely nothing.
It seems that way.
That sounds like a gaping loophole in the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about the Australian Institute's critique?
They too found significant issues. The Australian Institute was highly critical of the Australian Carbon Credit Unit for issuing credits for projects that didn't deliver genuine emission reductions.
So this isn't just an issue with like a single type of project or a certain region. It seems like a systemic problem in the global carbon market.
Raise serious concerns about the integrity and effectiveness of the global system as a whole.
Yeah. And then there's the EcoTrust Uganda project.
Yeah.
That one caught my eye too.
Interesting one.
Yeah, the aim was to generate carbon credits by planting trees.
Yeah.
Which sounds fantastic on the surface.
Of course.
But things didn't go quite as planned, did they?
Not at all.
Yeah.
While the project intended to promote carbon sequestration and community benefits, it was ultimately plagued by flaws, contributing to land grabbing and the displacement of local communities.
Wow. It's heartbreaking that a project designed to help the environment ended up causing harm.
Yeah.
It really underscores the need to carefully consider like the social and environmental impacts of these projects on the ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah, these real world examples reveal that the current system has some serious cracks.
It does.
Yeah, it begs the question, why is the reality of carbon trading so different from the theory? It seems like something is fundamentally broken here.
Yeah.
Why isn't the system working as intended?
Good question.
Yeah.
So we've laid out some pretty like stark examples here of where global carbon trading goes wrong. You know, it makes you wonder what's the root cause of all this?
There are three key areas where the global carbon market as it currently operates diverges from the economic principles it's supposed to be based on.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Let's unpack those.
So first we have the issue of leakage.
Okay.
You'll recall I mentioned the possibility of companies simply moving their emissions to other regions.
Right.
If it's cheaper than reducing them directly.
Right. It's like squeezing one end of a balloon.
Exactly.
The air just shifts to the other side.
Precisely. A project might reduce deforestation in one area.
Right.
But that deforestation may simply migrate elsewhere.
The emissions aren't actually disappearing.
Yeah.
They're just playing a game of whack-a-mole.
Right.
In a local market, that kind of displacement would be much harder to miss.
Right.
But in the global market,
yeah,
it's easier to obscure.
Okay, so leakage is one big problem.
Yes.
What's the second?
The second issue is what's known as additionality.
Okay.
This is when projects claim credits for actions that would happen anyway, even without the carbon market.
Okay.
A classic example is the case of Chinese hydroelectric projects claiming millions of credits for building dams that were already economically viable and in the pipeline.
So they're essentially getting a financial pat on the back.
Yep, pretty well.
For something they were already going to do, plus reaping the economic benefits of the project itself.
Right.
Not exactly a recipe for genuine emissions reduction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The real challenge is verifying whether a project is truly additional or not.
Right.
And this becomes even more difficult across international borders.
Yeah.
And this leads us directly into the third problem.
Okay.
Price signal failure.
Okay, I'm curious about this one.
Yeah.
How does the price signal go haywire in the global market?
Well, the availability of ultra cheap international credits creates the illusion of action,
right?
Sort of a greenwashing effect, if you will, without driving real change.
Right.
Why would a company invest in expensive but crucial technology upgrades when they can buy credits for a few dollars per ton from a questionable project on the other side of the world?
Right. The incentive to innovate and actually reduce emissions, it just isn't there.
Exactly. And this is where the idea of moral hazard comes into play.
I've heard that term, but I'm not sure I fully grasp it. Can you elaborate on how moral hazard plays a role in carbon markets?
Sure. It essentially describes situations where someone is insulated from the full consequences of their actions, leading them to take on more risk.
Okay. The
ease of buying cheap, potentially dubious credits creates this moral hazard for companies. They appear eco-conscious without making real changes.
Right.
The Guardian's investigation, for example, exposed this very problem.
So the system itself is actually discouraging real action.
Yeah.
Because it's too easy to game the system.
Right.
It's a pretty scathing critique of the current setup.
And distance makes verification even more challenging.
Right.
Local regulators, they can physically inspect projects, have a better understanding of the local context, and provide ongoing oversight. Yeah. But in the global system, relying on paperwork and satellite imagery, simply can't capture the full picture.
Okay, so we've established that the global carbon market is facing some serious challenges.
For sure.
This brings us back to the concept of localizing carbon markets.
Yes.
Which you mentioned earlier.
Right.
How does shifting to a local approach address these fundamental flaws?
Well, localizing carbon markets is about aligning incentives with environmental goals.
Okay.
It's about creating a system where the price of carbon accurately reflects the true cost of reducing emissions within a specific region.
So you're essentially making it more expensive for companies to pollute within their own communities.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be met with a lot of pushback from businesses?
There's likely to be some resistance, especially initially.
Yeah.
However, that increased cost is actually a feature, not a bug.
Okay.
It sends a clear signal that pollution isn't free.
Right.
And encourages companies to innovate and find solutions locally.
Okay. I can see how that could drive innovation.
Yeah.
But what about like the practicality of it all?
Sure.
Are there any like potential downsides or trade-offs we should be aware of when considering this shift to local markets?
There are some valid concerns, and it's crucial to acknowledge those.
Okay.
One is the potential for increased compliance costs for businesses.
Yeah, I can imagine companies wouldn't be thrilled about that.
Of course.
Yeah.
However, it's important to remember that carbon pricing aims to reflect the real cost of emissions.
Yeah.
If reducing emissions in a heavily industrialized region is genuinely expensive, the price of those local carbon credits should reflect that.
Okay.
It's about making sure the polluter pays the full price of their impact.
So it's not about like punishing businesses. It's about like creating a level playing field where sustainable practices are actually rewarded. Makes sense. What are some other concerns about moving to a local system?
Another common concern is the potential impact on international investment.
Okay.
Some argue that developing nations who often benefit from carbon finance flowing in from developed countries could be left behind in a more localized system.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's vital to ensure that climate action doesn't inadvertently harm those who are most vulnerable to its impact.
Absolutely, but the current system isn't necessarily doing a stellar job of directing those investments effectively either.
Right.
As we've seen, many international credits are going toward projects with questionable value.
Yeah.
While allowing high-emitting countries to continue polluting.
Right.
With less pressure to change.
So it's not about cutting off funding, but finding like more effective ways to support climate action in developing countries.
Right.
Are there any other concerns about the effectiveness of local markets?
Another frequent argument is that local markets might lack the liquidity of a global market.
Okay.
They worry about these markets being too small and inefficient.
I can see how that might be a concern. For a market to be truly effective, you need a healthy level of activity and a diverse range of participants.
Absolutely. However, well-designed markets can operate efficiently at various scales.
Okay.
Think about commodity markets for agricultural products or minerals.
Yeah.
Many function quite well within regional boundaries.
So it's not about the size of the market.
Yeah.
It's about how it's structured and regulated.
Precisely.
Okay.
Transparent pricing, clear rules of engagement, and consistent trading activity are essential for a well-functioning market,
Okay.
regardless of its size.
Yeah.
A a well-designed local market,
Yep.
even if it's relatively small,
Yeah.
can be far more impactful
Okay.
than a sprawling, poorly regulated global one.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It seems like a more targeted and nuanced approach.
Right.
Could be more effective in the long run.
Yes.
But I'm curious,
Yeah.
what about the argument that global markets are inherently more efficient
Right.
because they can tap into the lowest cost emission reductions worldwide?
Sure.
Doesn't that make sense from a purely economic standpoint?
On paper, yes.
Okay.
The theoretical appeal of global markets lies in their ability to identify and fund
Yeah.
the most cost-effective emission reductions anywhere in the world.
So if you're looking for the cheapest way to
Yeah.
offset emissions, a global market
Right.
seems like the logical choice.
The problem is that this theoretical efficiency
Okay.
hinges on perfect information and flawless verification,
Right.
which, as we've seen,
Yeah.
are simply not realistic in the real world.
So the theory
Yes.
breaks down
Yeah.
when faced with the complexities of real world implementation.
Exactly. While local markets may not achieve the same level of theoretical efficiency as a global market,
Right.
they offer a crucial advantage.
Okay.
Practical effectiveness. Those higher local prices,
Yeah.
which might initially appear inefficient,
Yeah.
actually represent a more accurate reflection
Okay.
of the true cost of reducing emissions within a specific context.
It's about acknowledging that real world solutions don't always fit neatly into textbook economic models.
Precisely. And finally, there's the argument that transitioning to local markets would be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I can imagine companies have built like their entire business models around the existing global system.
Right.
Unwinding that and building something new from scratch.
It would be a significant undertaking, requiring careful planning and coordination.
Yeah.
But it's important to distinguish between implementation complexity and operational complexity.
So you're saying that once those local markets are established, they might actually be simpler to manage than the current global system.
Exactly.
Okay.
Local regulators would have a much easier time overseeing projects within their own jurisdictions.
Yeah.
They have a deeper understanding of the local context, and they wouldn't have to grapple with the challenges of international verification.
Okay, I see how that would like streamline things.
Yeah.
But even if we like overcome these logistical hurdles, there's still a larger question looming. If we shift to this localized model, what happens to the ideal of international cooperation on climate change?
That's a vital question.
Yeah.
And one we'll explore in our final segment.
Okay.
Can we reconcile local action with our shared global goals in the fight against climate change?
Yeah.
Let's dive into that next.
Welcome back. It feels like this deep dive has taken us down a real rabbit hole.
It has.
We've uncovered like some serious problems with the global carbon market.
Yeah.
And we've explored the potential of localized markets as a solution. But the question that's lingering for me is how do we balance this local focus with the need for global action on climate change? Is it even possible?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And the answer, I believe,
is
a resounding yes.
Okay.
Local action doesn't have to mean isolationist action.
Okay.
In fact, a network of interconnected local carbon markets could be a powerful engine for global progress.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear how this could work. How do we get from like individual local markets to a collective global impact?
One way is to build in strategic connections between those local markets.
Okay.
Imagine establishing limited trading windows where companies could fulfill a small portion, maybe 5 to 10% of their compliance obligations using credits from other regions.
So it's not a complete separation.
No, it's
but a system with like built-in flexibility
Right.
What would be the advantage of that?
It achieves two key things.
Okay.
First, it preserves some flexibility for companies.
Yeah.
Allowing them to access high-quality international credits.
Right.
If needed.
Okay.
But more importantly, it prevents those ultra-cheap, potentially questionable credits from flooding local markets and distorting prices.
So we're maintaining the integrity of those local price signals.
Yes.
Which is crucial for driving real emission reductions at the local level.
Yes.
But wouldn't this still create a kind of like two-tiered system?
That's a valid concern,
Yeah.
and it's why alongside these limited trading windows, we need robust mechanisms for knowledge sharing and collaboration between markets.
Right.
Imagine a global network of local markets that are constantly learning from each other.
Yeah.
Sharing best practices on market design and regulation.
Okay.
Developing common standards for carbon accounting, and even collaborating on research and development initiatives.
Yeah, it's like creating a global ecosystem of innovation where the best ideas can spread and be adapted to different contexts.
Exactly.
Instead of a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach, we have this dynamic network of interconnected local solutions.
Exactly, and that kind of bottom-up innovation could be far more effective than trying to shoehorn everyone into a single rigid global framework.
It's a really compelling vision.
Yeah.
But I imagine there will be pushback.
Oh, for sure.
From those who see this shift towards localism as a retreat from global responsibility. How do we address that concern?
I think the key is to reframe the narrative.
Okay.
Local action isn't about shirking responsibility.
Yes.
It's about taking ownership of the problem.
Yeah.
And finding solutions that work in the real world.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging that climate change is a global challenge
Right.
that demands local action to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, countries with the least capacity to engage in complex global market mechanisms are often those most vulnerable to climate impacts.
Yeah.
Localizing carbon markets could actually empower these nations to take charge of their own climate destinies.
So it's not about abandoning international cooperation, but evolving it to be more inclusive and equitable.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that the most effective and sustainable solutions will emerge from a combination of strong local action and robust global collaboration.
That's a really powerful point. It's not an either proposition. We need both. This has been an incredible deep dive, and honestly, my perspective has really shifted.
I'm glad.
What's one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with today?
I hope they understand that while the current global carbon market has noble intentions, it's not living up to its promise.
Yeah.
Localizing carbon markets, while not a silver bullet, offers a more pragmatic and potentially more effective path forward.
And a huge thank you to our listener for sending in these sources. They really sparked an incredible conversation.
Absolutely. These are complex issues, and I encourage everyone to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for solutions that will create a more sustainable future for all of us.
That's a perfect note to end on.
Thanks.
Until next time, keep diving deep.